New reaction this hour to the leak of President Trump's tax return. Did MSNBC's so-called scoop just backfire big time? Our own Tucker Carlson just getting the president's response. Welcome, everyone. I'm Stuart Varney in for Neil Cavuto. This is Your World. The fallout from all of this with former presidential candidate Pat Buchanan in a moment. First, to Blake Berman at the White House. Blake?
Stuart, in this 2005 tax return, a couple documents of it, a partial return from Donald Trump over a decade ago, shows a few things from that year. First off, in 2005, that he made a lot of money, about $153 million worth, and that he paid a lot in federal taxes, about $38 million worth. The overwhelming majority of that, some $31 million bucks, coming through the AMT, the alternative minimum tax. Just a little while ago, the president sat down with Tucker Carlson, gave his first comments about these documents, and he questioned the legality behind whoever posted them.
I have no idea where they got it, but it's illegal, and you're not supposed to have it, and it's not supposed to be leaked. And it's certainly not an embarrassing tax return at all, but it's an illegal thing. They've been doing it, they've done it before, and I think it's a disgrace.
However, the folks over at the Democratic National Committee are suggesting that the White House knows exactly where these documents came from. In a statement, a senior advisor over at the DNC said the following, I am quoting here, "The White House's willingness to release some tax information when it suits them proves Donald Trump's audit excuse is a sham." They go on to write the only reason not to release his returns is to hide what's in them, such as financial connections with Russian oligarchs and the Kremlin. Stuart, back to you.
All right, Blake, thank you very much indeed. Now, reaction to all of this from former presidential candidate Pat Buchanan. Pat, welcome to the program. Straightforward question right off the top. Who won this one? Rachel Maddow, MSNBC, or, you're laughing, President Trump?
Initially, when I heard it this morning, Stuart, I thought, if they look at that envelope, they're probably going to find Bannon's fingerprints on it. I think what happened, no, I think this is win-win for the president. I know he's angry, and I can understand that. It's his tax return. Somebody's got them and has been leaking them. And I don't think from his anger that he knows exactly who did it. But I will say this, the leak of that, and frankly its exposition by Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, has blown a real hole in the argument that he hadn't paid any taxes. To the average American, $38 million in taxes on $150 million in income is an awful lot of money. It's a higher tax rate than Mitt Romney paid, or Barack Obama paid, or I think Warren Buffett paid, and maybe even more than Warren Buffett's secretary.
Well, actually, the tax rate paid by President Trump, or Donald Trump back then, was 25%. The tax rate paid by Bernie Sanders is 13%. The tax rate paid by former President Obama is 18%. And Comcast, which owns MSNBC, pays around 23-24%. So in other words, President Trump, Donald Trump then, is paying a much higher tax rate than his critics.
Indeed he is. Bernie Sanders, you say, is paying, what, 18%?
13%.
He's a man of the little people, and he's paying the little people's tax rate. But, you know, but I think really this damages the case that's made by the Democrats against the President of the United States. You've heard talk, we heard in the campaign, that he went 18 years and he paid nothing. And now you see that he's paid a tremendous sum, quite frankly, and a very high percentage, 25%, for a man of his skill and experience, and frankly in a business where depreciation eats up a lot of your income in a number of years. So again, I think it's a win-win for the president. But once again, I think I mean, even if my tax return looked very nice to people, I think I'd be a little miffed and a little concerned if people are passing it around.
Well, the president says they were leaked. He doesn't know by whom. He said it was disgraceful. But the problem of leaks goes beyond the IRS, goes beyond the tax return. The leaks are coming from all over the place, probably within the federal bureaucracy. That's a real threat which undermines the Trump presidency.
It certainly is, Stuart. And let me say this. Especially these leaks that you see in the paper where the reporters, who I think are telling the truth, say intelligence sources reveal that Trump campaign officials were in contact with Russian intelligence agents. Now, if they got intelligence sources, those people got that how? By electronic surveillance of some kind. At the same time, they're breaking their oath, and they are breaking the law. They are committing felonies, in order to undermine and damage the President of the United States. Now, I've heard folks say, you know, well, the President-elect or the candidate Trump should not have been so rough on the intelligence community. But these are crimes, serial crimes, committed, I think, to break the presidency of Donald Trump, to slow it down, to damage his agenda. And this is something that really ought to be investigated first and foremost, I think, by Capitol Hill, but also by the FBI. Who is doing this? They ought to run them down, find them, fire them, and prosecute them.
What do you make, I guess it's a conspiracy theory, but it's out there, that President Trump leaked his own tax return because it looks so good, and he leaked it for his own benefit? I know you're laughing, but
well, I'm not laughing
Chuck
because
Scarborough on MSNBC this morning said exactly that.
Well, I first saw it when it came out this morning, and I did not watch Rachel's show last night. This morning, I said, this is tremendous news for Donald Trump, the president. And Rachel Maddow apparently had something of, you know, was somewhat embarrassed by it once she got to it and put it all out. And so I said, this looks like, you know, a low-level dirty trick by the Trump people on MSNBC. But I heard President Trump and speaking to Tucker, and his anger and the fact he was miffed seemed very genuine.
Let me raise this issue. Republican chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, he sees, and he said today, he sees no indication that President Obama tapped the phones at Trump Tower. Then we had Adam Schiff, who's the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, saying that the President Trump, has to explain what he said in his tweet or retract it. This could be a problem for the president.
Well, it could be, but there's another problem here. Now, I don't believe the President of the United States ordered a wiretap on Donald Trump or Trump Tower. But I do believe, from what we've talked about, all these intelligence sources saying we have this, that, and the other, that they clearly got through, I think, surveillance of some kind or the other. Was Donald Trump or Trump Tower or Trump's officials, political officials, were they surveyed by the federal government of the United States? That's question one. Secondly, if that happened and it was authorized, was the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, aware of it, informed about it? And was the President of the United States informed about it if it was going on? Now, if that turns out to be true, and I think there's a possibility, there's a lot of folks that got some splaining to do.
And we don't have answers to those questions. But
we should have them soon.
Okay, yes, sir. Pat Buchanan, thanks as always for joining us, sir. Great to see you again.
Thank you, Stuart.
Yes, sir. President Trump rolling into Michigan today, where he promised to check out and roll back last-minute fuel economy rules set by the Obama administration that are hurting automakers. Fox Business Network's Jeff Flock is there getting reaction from auto executives. Jeff.
Oh, he got a warm reception from everybody here, the executives as well as the auto workers who were packing this venue here, hundreds of auto workers cheering the president. We talked to Mary Barra, Sergio Marchionne of Fiat Chrysler. They said they got the president's message loud and clear, which is create jobs in the U.S. If you do that, I will take these burdensome regulations off your shoulders. Mary Barra says she's excited. Listen.
I care about the environment. General Motors is committed to the environment. We're making, investing billions in the technologies of electrification and fuel cells and improving every single system in the vehicle. So we are committed and want to have, a safer, environment across the globe.
Yeah, some people say, Stuart, that the automakers, they don't care about the environment. They just want to pollute out there. That's why they don't want these regulations on them. Mary Barra making very clear, a lot of people that buy cars care about the environment. She doesn't want to hurt it. Also, Sergio Marchionne telling us, this is about competitiveness, folks. Tell me what I need to do, and I will figure out how to do it. Don't tell me how to do it. Listen to what he said.
We're smart enough and technologically astute enough to find the right portfolio of technology choices to make the numbers. I just don't want to be told that in order to do that, I got to wear a headband and 3 stripes on the side. That doesn't make me competitive.
Sergio Marchionne proudly, Stuart, wearing his moth-eaten sweater, even to a meeting with the president. The president didn't seem to mind.
Got it. Jeff Locke, right there in Detroit. Thanks very much, Jeff. Now, let's get back to Washington. Forget the president's tax return. Are folks more concerned about their own, as the timeline for tax reform appears to be slipping further and further away? Virginia Republican Congressman Dave Bratt is a member of the Freedom Caucus and joins us now. Congressman, the message from a lot of people is a lot of concern here about the slipping timetable for tax reform. The message seems to be, can't the GOP put health care, that fight, to bed and get on with tax reform?
Yeah, we can, Stuart. We have a few major pieces we still got to get right. The last segment you just had was on the great work Trump's doing on regulation, and we still have not taken care of that when we're doing health care. That comes in bucket 2 with Secretary Price, and that's my major problem. As a free market guy, we're paying too much attention to coverage right now, almost exclusively, like Obama did back in 2008, but we're not paying attention to price and bringing down cost. And the federal regulations and mandates are the primary cost driver. Okay. So Trump's getting it right on bringing down the regs across the economy. We have to put that in law. So if they put that in law, if they put bucket 2 into this bill, you're going to get a lot more people to yes, and that's a total winner.
For years and years and years, we've been trying to bring down the ever-escalating cost of health care itself. Not insurance, health care itself.
That's right.
Nobody has been able to do it. What will you do to actually bring down the cost of health care?
Right. Well, you got it just right. The health care is too intricately linked to health insurance. It all started after World War II with the employer tax preference, and that messed things up. So there's your first distortion, and then you get other distortions. So what are we going to do? We're going to get rid of the mandates coming from the federal government that do not allow a young person right now to go out and buy a cheap health insurance policy. If you allow that, if you get rid of the mandates, they don't have to buy this rich, silver, bronze, platinum package. That will dramatically bring down costs. And then what Trump wants is he wants shopping across state lines. So you put those two together, and that's a winner.
Well, we hear the argument. We see the argument. It makes a lot of sense. But the argument drags on and on and on, which puts the tax reform package further and further away. Arguably, cutting taxes, reforming the tax code is more important for more people and the economy than fixing Obamacare. Can you get a move on?
Yeah, I'm with you. And yes, we can. It all hangs on this parliamentarian over in the Senate. So if President Trump goes over there with the TV cameras and says, hello, parliamentarian, Vice President Pence is going to sit in this chair for a minute, and when you counsel him, he's going to say, thank you very much, but we're going to put bucket 2 into this bill, and we're done. We're done next week. If the president and vice president do that, we've got a good bill that's going to really reduce prices. It'll start with a free market premise, and then the safety net is easy to take care of.
I've got to ask you this one.
You bet.
If you don't get your way, are you going to say no way at all, and it goes away, and health reform goes away?
No. If I don't get the way of my 800,000 constituents who are telling me that they do not want this bill unless we get a free market solution that will actually bring costs down, I represent them. So it's not about me at all. I represent 800,000 folks. They don't want it.
If you don't get that fix in phase 2, you're out of here. Yes?
No, I'm not out of here. I mean, I'm open-minded. We'll look for a compromise. We want to get done, like you say, because if you don't get the animal spirits moving, I taught economics, and I got my little Adam Smith tie going here. So I'm with you on that. That is the fundamental piece. We got to get economic growth going again, and I'm with you.
Congressman Dave Bratt, thanks for joining us, sir. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Reaction now from the Washington Examiner's Byron York, who says, I believe, it is House Republicans to blame and getting in the way and holding up tax reform. That's it?
Well, you were just talking with Representative Bratt about how incredibly complicated this is. Oh, what about the reconciliation? What about the three-part process? What about what happens in the Budget Committee? Let's have a 24-hour hearing in the Ways and Means Committee. I mean, this has been an astonishingly complex process, and really there's a long way to go in it. And I think the question to ask here is, start off with, what is the most popular thing Donald Trump has done as president? I think it was actually before he became president with the carrier deal, keeping jobs in Indiana. It wasn't a huge deal in terms of the entire national workforce, but it sent a message, and it said, I, Donald Trump, got elected to fix the economy, and that's going to be my first priority. And so the more President Trump gets bogged down in these incredibly arcane parliamentary details about replacing Obamacare, the less he's talking about jobs.
Well, can the president cut through this parliamentary maneuvering? Does he have the power to just cut through it and say, we're going to do this? Can he do it?
Well, no, he can't. He can't tell Congress. He
No.
can't tell the Senate, no, you can't use reconciliation there. That's why we have branches of government. So he can't do that. But he can list his priorities for his party, Republicans, in Congress, and he could have chosen a different path, going toward more job-oriented measures
But he
to begin
didn't.
with.
He
The
didn't.
problem is, and you know about this, this is more of the complications. The Republicans say, well, we can't do tax reform until we do a budget, and we can't do a budget until we do Obamacare, and it's all tied together, and it has to go in the same order, and these reconciliation rules, or it's just a one-shot thing, and it's really complicated.
Does it have to be that complicated? Does it have to be?
Well, you know, it might not. The president might have come in and said, we are going to do this for jobs. We are going to do an infrastructure bill right now. I know some of you Republicans don't like that, but I'm the president of all the people, and we think we should do that. He could have taken other paths. But
he
now
didn't.
he has gone down this one. And
Surely, Brian, you do recognize, I know you do, that there is a rising tide of frustration that this is just politics as usual, parliamentary maneuvering as usual. I think the country is kind of upset about this.
Well, and that's not a reasonable conclusion either. I mean, that is what's going on. So I do think if President Trump is going to be the CEO who has the big vision, he's going to have to bust out of this somehow. Not sure exactly how you do it. Because we've gone where we've gone. I mean, I was talking with someone today who's really quite expert about some of these things, and said, you know, the Republicans could have just done the right bill, a big bill to replace Obamacare, and forget about the reconciliation stuff, send it to the Senate, see what could be done. If Democrats actually blocked it, then it's a political issue. But that didn't happen. We are where we are, so the president's going to have to find a way to break out of this thing.
You know, I do sense that frustration on my show on the Fox Business Network, Varney and Company. We're constantly told, for heaven's sake, get on with it, get on with it, get on with it. This is just what we used to, and we don't like it. Real level of frustration here. Byron, I know you feel the same way. Thanks for joining us. Always
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Stuart.
Thanks, Byron. All right, President Trump promising 4% growth. Is the Fed going to stand in the way with its rate hikes? We'll be back. As promised, the Fed hiking interest rates today by another quarter point and expecting 2 more hikes this year. We're asking if the rising rates will throw cold water on President Trump's promise to heat up our economy. Here now, the founder of Bold.Global, Carrie Sheffield, and Fox News contributors Steve Cortez and Gary Kaltbaum. I'm going to round the block very, very quickly, starting with you, Gary. Are these rate hikes going to mess up 4% growth next year?
I don't think so. Look, we're still at 1% here. Around the globe, there's negative rates and the printing of trillions of dollars. So we're still the easiest monetary policy in history. For me, what could trip things up are the 2 words, great expectations. You speak to any small business owner or even big business owners, they have great expectations on tax reform and regulatory reform. If that doesn't get done, then we're going to see problems, but we are hopeful.
Okay, Carrie Sheffield, the rate hikes, will that interfere with 3-4% growth next year?
Well, I hope not. I mean, the hope is that this will spur investment. There's so much corn sitting there in the silo that is being unused, that has been untapped. People are uncertain about whether they want to deploy it. This could actually nudge people, incentivize them. This could also help seniors who are living, you know, on fixed income. They're not getting interest. This could encourage them to spend more. We could see things heat up. I mean, I do agree there is certainly a risk here, but let's be bold and let's take a risk here.
Can we go 3 for 3? Steve Cortez, are you going to agree with everybody else and say, yes, we will get growth next year and the rate hikes will not interfere with it?
Yes, I'm going to say we are going to get it. If I can channel Joe Namath in Super Bowl III, I'm going to say I guarantee it that we're going to get it. Rates are rising for the right reason here, which is that we finally have growth, particularly when in regards to wages, and we have optimism because of what President Trump is already doing just weeks into his presidency. So I think those forces of tax reform, regulatory relief, those are so much bigger than rising interest rates that we're going to see 4% growth.
You know, there is news which doesn't make it onto the front pages of the New York Times or leads the evening news broadcast. We've got news about optimism and confidence. The CEO Roundtable, the Home Builders Index, Small Business Index, Consumer Confidence, all of those areas, confidence is at a 10-year high, optimism at a 10-year high. That sets the groundwork, that sets the table for growth, Carrie.
Absolutely, it does, Stuart. I mean, we put a man on the moon. There's no reason why we can't achieve 4% growth rate. And even if we don't hit 4%, there's no reason why we shouldn't shoot for the moon. We should be a moonshot country. Even if you don't hit the moon, you land in the stars. So let's keep pushing. Let's keep that optimism going.
Gary, the table is set for a nice uptick in growth in the economy. Now, I've been sort of talking about 4% growth. Are we going to get 3 or 4% growth?
I think so, and let's not forget the greatest forecaster of them all, Stuart, the stock market. The market is a great forecaster of things to come, plus the fact there's about $3 trillion of wealth that people are feeling right now, which will also be a catalyst going forward. I think it's pretty much going to be a gimme, but they are going to have to come through with what they say they're going to do, and Republicans need to get together and get the job done.
Yeah, Gary, well, I got to add on that, because I think what Trump's message is, this isn't just about the stock market. This is about Main Street. We need to tear down this wall, Mr. Trump, between Wall Street and Main Street. The Democrats erected that wall. This is not a real wall. We need to get Main Street. That is the blood of job creation in this country.
Steve Cortez, last one. We don't get strong growth if we don't get a tax cut bill this year, right?
That is correct, Stuart, and that's why we will get that tax cut bill through, and we'll get it through by summertime. Look, there's always watching the
optimistic there, Steve.
Well, watching the
Fingers
legislative.
crossed.
Yeah.
Watching the legislative sausage get made can be ugly. However, President Trump, and here's why it's going to get through, because those members of Congress do not want to go back to their Republican districts where President Trump is incredibly popular and explain to the voters why they impeded Trump's agenda, particularly regarding taxes. And because of that, they are eventually going to heel to him, and he's going to get this through Congress, and we are going to grow again.
All right, we'll take that optimism. Gary, Steve, and Carrie, thank you one and all. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Now, Tucker Carlson's interview with President Trump already making news on wiretapping. You are about to see why and get reaction from the judge. That's next. Fox's Tucker Carlson sat down with President Trump and asked him why he tweeted about wiretapping before producing any evidence. Well, Tucker's full interview with the president will air at 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. But first, here was the president's response.
But wiretap covers a lot of different things. I think you're going to find some very interesting items coming to the forefront over the next 2 weeks.
News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano with us now. What do you make of that statement?
I think that the president is talking about surveillance in general. So he's not just talking about phone calls being listened to. I think he's also talking about documents being examined. And I think we are going to learn at some time in the next few weeks, maybe even sooner, that documents that the president or that the president's corporation or even that the president's father filed in connection with his work were illegally examined by other people in the government. That's what I think he's referring to.
So there's news still to come down the pike, a few days or weeks.
Once these documents are revealed. So I think that the president was generally aware of what had been done to him and his family, and he characterized all that as wiretapping, even though strictly speaking it was probably more surveillance than wiretapping, examining in an illegal way conversations and documents that the examiners had no right to look at.
Are we passing words to some degree here?
Well, I don't know exactly what these documents are, Stuart, and the information that I got after Tucker's question was answered and was put on the airwaves was a little bit ambiguous, but that I'm fairly confident that that's what it refers to.
I want to talk to you about Rachel Maddow last night,
right.
The scoop revealing President Trump's partial tax return, a summary thereof for 2005. Was it legal for her to do that?
Yes. Yes, the law is that if the matter is of material interest to the public, even if it were top secret, and this is right below top secret in the government's hierarchy of protected documents, the tax returns of a taxpayer, if there's a material public interest in it, the thief can be prosecuted, but the publisher, in this case MSNBC, cannot be.
Whomsoever leaked that tax return, that person is culpable, that person is liable, whomsoever it may be.
Well, unless it's the theory of one of her colleagues that the leaker was the president, because you can reveal your own tax returns. It's unlikely that it was him in light of what he said to Tucker. So any other person who had custody of that did not have the right to leak it. Right. That person committed the crime.
Well, it's not likely to have been the president on the grounds that he just said to Tucker this today. He called these leaks disgraceful. It's a big problem. And he's going to find out who did it.
He is right. It is a big problem because it's happening in his own branch of government, over which he does not yet have full practical control. He has legal control, but not full practical control.
Rachel Maddow does not have a legal problem. She's got an image problem and a journalistic problem.
Yes, agreed.
And a political problem.
Yes, agreed.
Because she revealed these 2 pages, a summary of 2 pages from 2005, and what it revealed was that President, or Donald Trump, as he was then, had paid $38 million
yes.
in 1 year. That's an enormous amount of money.
Almost as much as you pay in a year, Mr. Varney.
Silence, Judge. Quiet on the bench. But
couldn't resist.
I know you couldn't. But that was a tax rate
yes.
of 25%.
Yes.
That was almost double the tax rate paid by Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist.
It basically revealed that Donald Trump, at least with respect to these documents, has been telling the truth about his wealth and the severity of his taxes.
Exactly. And for years they'd said he'd not paid any taxes, that he was not as rich as he said he was.
Has the New York Times, which said he hasn't paid any taxes in 20 years, have they commented on this yet?
Do you know what the headline was this morning? Trump takes a $100 million write-off.
Wow.
That was the headline.
Man, they can twist anything.
Judge, you're all right. Thanks
Pleasure,
for joining us. See you tomorrow.
See you on your show tomorrow.
You will, sir. Thank you very much. New numbers are out. Obamacare enrollment dropping. Now, Republicans say that's proof they are onto something. Democrats accusing them of sabotaging. One of those Democrats is here. And is the Brexit Trump trend continuing? All eyes on the election in the Netherlands, what it could mean for our money, our markets over here. A new government report shows a big drop in Obamacare enrollment this year. It's down around 500,000 people, around 500,000 down. And House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, she's blaming the bad numbers on what she calls a Republican sabotage campaign. To Kentucky Democrat Congressman John Yarmuth, he is the ranking Democrat on the House Budget Committee. Congressman, welcome to the program. It's good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Stuart.
So we've got a drop of 500,000 in terms of enrollment. And over the course of Obamacare, premiums have gone up, deductibles have gone way up, insurance companies are dropping out, so there's limited competition. The cost of health care has gone up, and now 500,000 people fewer enrollees. And Senator Schumer says you've got to drop the repeal effort. Why should Republicans drop the repeal effort when the performance of Obamacare has been so problematical?
Well, first of all, Stuart, thanks for having me on the program. The only problems that exist with the ACA right now are in the individual insurance market, which basically relates to about 6% of the population. Everything else is going fine. You have the employer group insurance where price increases are at the lowest historic rate. Same with Medicare. The Medicaid expansion is going very well. In my state, 440,000 people have coverage and are getting care. But the individual market poses a problem, and it does it for a couple reasons. One is that there's something called adverse selection when insurers come in and they get a disproportionate amount of sick people and not enough healthy people. That's happened in a lot of places.
Well, how do you fix that?
Well, there are a couple ways you fix it. We had a mechanism in the ACA called risk corridors where we actually had funds to mitigate the insurance companies who did suffer from adverse selection. Republicans actually defunded that, so there was no backstop for those insurance companies. You can do reinsurance plans. Of course, you can do mandatory enrollment, which gets everybody in the pool, and that solves the problem. Philosophically, I don't think Republicans want to go there, and I'm not sure how you would actually enforce that. One of the problems we had is that our individual mandate was not sufficient to get enough young people into the system and keep them there. So there are a lot of problems in that market.
Is your answer to force more people in? Make them do it. Raise the fines, for example. Is that your solution?
No, that's not my solution. You said, how can you do it? That's one way you can do it. I don't think that. Personally, I think the answer is to allow anybody in the individual insurance market to enroll in Medicare. Because that way you get an actuarially established price, you get healthy people in Medicare, which makes that more sustainable. I'm not sure if my caucus wants to go there. I know some do. But it's a real problem in the individual market. I've talked to insurance executives. Humana's based in my district. And what they tell me is, unless the government's involved, there is no way to sustain an individual market in the private insurance system.
Can I wrap it up with this question?
Sure.
Would you rather have the Obamacare system staying in place or the Ryan plan to reform it?
I would much rather have the Obamacare system staying in place. What you're seeing now is a dramatic cutback on Medicaid. It would devastate my state's hospitals and providers. That's why the American Hospital Association is against it. I mean, this Republican plan has more opponents than I can imagine. Virtually no one loves this plan. And I say it's in legislative quicksand. I mean, it's going to sink, and every time the Republicans try to move a little bit, it sinks deeper.
I'm sorry, I've got to leave you, but Congressman Yarmouth, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Take a look at this, everyone. This is Air Force One. It's about to land in Tennessee. The president makes a speech in Nashville later on tonight. We'll have more on that in just a moment. Moments ago, we showed you Air Force One landing in Tennessee with the president on board. Also on board, of course, was the press secretary, Sean Spicer. And during a gaggle, that's where a group of reporters gets around the press secretary asking questions, the subject came up of MSNBC's Rachel Maddow and her release of President Trump's 2005 tax return. He was asked directly about it. He was asked, did MSNBC break the law by publishing that tax return? Spicer said that was a question for the president's personal lawyer. He did note that it is illegal to publish a tax return. He took offense at the network questioning whether the president himself had leaked the return. He said that that idea was despicable and reprehensible and how they'd conducted themselves. But he also did not deny that the White House leaked the return. He was asked directly, did the White House leak that tax return? He would not deny it directly when asked. There's another item of news that's coming up here. The White House is, we're told, working with Speaker Ryan for what's called a manager's amendment. That would be some kind of change to the Ryan plan on health care reform, which would be imposed in phase 2 or phase 3. So the negotiations are proceeding. Some changes are being made to the Ryan plan. All of this happening just moments ago and breaking moments ago. We also have this for you. All eyes on the Dutch election today. Early exit polls suggesting Prime Minister Mark Rutte winning the parliamentary election over populist politician Geert Wilders. To Greg Palkert from The Hague, Netherlands with the latest. Greg.
Hi, Stuart. In the past 45 minutes, we have gotten exit polls coming from these Dutch elections, voting stopping about 45 minutes ago. And it does, in fact, show some gains for the populist politician Geert Wilders. But according to analysts here, he has lost the expectation game. The projections show that voters here have picked the party of the incumbent center-right Prime Minister Mark Rutte in these parliamentary elections. He is down from the last election, but he has won the most seats. Wilders' party is in second place, but it is a distant second place according to projections, and he is in a tie with at least 2 other parties. It is expected that Rutte will, in fact, form a government. Wilders, remember, was at one point in a clear lead in the poll. His anti-immigrant, anti-Islam, anti-European Union nationalist pitch hit a chord with voters. He was even dubbed the Dutch Donald Trump. Still, he has gained more seats for his party than in the last parliament, and experts definitely say that he has pushed the dialogue of this campaign in his direction. Take a listen to what he told me earlier today.
Whatever the outcome of the elections today, the genie will not go back into the bottle, and this patriotic revolution, whether today or tomorrow, will take place anyway.
Stewart, elections are coming up next month in France and in the fall in Germany. That populist line is playing a role in those elections. Politicians there will no doubt be looking here to Holland and taking some lessons from it. Back to you.
All right, Greg Parkott, thanks very much indeed. Let's bring in former advisor to Britain's Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher. Niall Gardner is with us now. Niall, I hope you heard there, exit polls in the Netherlands suggest that Geert Wilders will come in second. He was supposed to win. He's likely to come in second, and a distant second at that. Niall, does that mean that the populist movement in Europe, very important to us here, is running out of steam?
Well, it's certainly, I think, a somewhat disappointing result for Geert Wilders and his Freedom Party, and certainly a good day for Mark Rutte, the centre-right Prime Minister of the country. However, having said that, I do think that you still see a sort of populist trend sweeping through Europe. You did see the Wilders vote increase over the 2012 elections, and I think a lot of the issues raised by Geert Wilders and his party, issues over mass immigration, for example, the refugee crisis, also a Eurosceptic message. Certainly you're seeing that more and more reflected by many of the mainstream parties in Holland and also across Europe as well. And certainly the ruling centre-right government shifted its message significantly with regard to immigration issues in the last few weeks. They put forward a far more hard-line message, reflecting, I think, growing public unease with mass immigration into Europe.
Niall, real fast here, we're reporting on an election in the Netherlands. Why should we care over here about what happens with a Dutch election?
I think it's important. I mean, Holland really is the heart of Europe, and I think a lot of the changes that you're seeing in Holland and other parts of the middle of Europe certainly have wider implications for the whole of Europe and across the world. But I think you are seeing, without a doubt, growing momentum in Holland and other countries for tighter immigration controls, border controls, also a backlash against the sort of open borders approach that has been adopted by politicians such as Angela Merkel and also François Hollande in recent years.
It's just fascinating stuff.
This is significant what happens in Holland.
Yes, it is. Niall, thanks for joining us, sir. We'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Next stop, Nashville. President Trump arriving in Tennessee. A big rally expected there shortly. Is that going to help motivate people here? This just in, a federal judge in Hawaii saying he will issue a written order on Trump's revised travel ban before it goes into effect midnight tonight. Got it. President Trump landing in Nashville, Tennessee for a big rally tonight. Fox News correspondent Kristen Fisher live in Nashville. Kristen?
Well, Stuart, President Trump's first stop in Tennessee is actually going to be to the home of former President Andrew Jackson, our 7th president. He's going to be laying a wreath at his tomb on his 250th birthday. And, you know, Jackson's a president that President Trump has felt a real connection to. They're both outsider, populist presidents who challenge the status quo in defense of the common man. Listen to what President Trump said about him just a few hours ago at an event in Michigan.
They say my election was most similar to his. 1828. It's a long time ago. Usually they go back like to this one or that one, 12 years ago, 16. I mean, 1828, that's a long way.
Now, after touring Jackson's home, President Trump will come here to this rally where people have been lined up since very early this morning. And Nashville is actually a blue city in a big red state. It's one of only 3 counties in the state of Tennessee that went for Hillary Clinton in November. So why here? Well, Nashville's a hotbed for charter schools, which President Trump supports, so expect school choice to come up. Also, Nashville is the capital of the private healthcare industry in the United States. About 250 healthcare companies are headquartered here. here. So the big question tonight is going to be, how hard does President Trump try to sell the House Republican health care plan? Is it going to be a full, enthusiastic endorsement, or is it going to be a bit more quiet and tempered? We'll find out in about 2.5 hours. Stuart?
It's going to be a pretty big rally, I think. Several thousand people, you think there, Kristen?
About 9,000 is what we're hearing, and the crowds line up all the way around the block. Huge crowds for this.
Got it. Kristen Fisher right there. Thanks very much indeed, Kristen. We appreciate that. Thank you. That will do it from here. Do remember, please, Varney and Company on the Fox Business Network. We start at sharp 9 o'clock Eastern. We go all the way through till noon. Politics and money. That's what we concentrate on. Favorite subjects for all of us. Politics and money.